Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy this channel, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, which inspires me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my books. Now, before we get started with today's session, I wanted to redirect you to another recent live stream. So the Artcasters, Corey Kerr, Joshua Kimball, Scott Circlin, they did a recent episode about the death of Ed Piskor. And I posted the link to it in the comments for this video, and I'll put them in the description after the live stream's over. But this was a very, very thoughtful discussion about mental health, about creative community, and about social media in ways in which it can turn toxic. And this is not, their stream was not something to watch. It's not something that's about getting people fired up or angry or vitriolic about one side or the other. It's really about what kind of outcomes we want when we interact with each other. And I think that it brings something that is missing from a lot of internet discussion, which is actual nuance. People actually talking and listening to each other and discussing a lot of the different sides of a view. And all I can say is that these guys handled a very, very difficult subject with a lot of tact and consideration and compassion. And I highly encourage all of you to go and watch this if this is something you're willing and interested to talk about. They do mention, the topic of people ending their lives. So that's a trigger warning. If that's something that is a difficult topic for you, then it's not for you. But I think that it's the most important thing is that it is not the ending of a discussion. It's the beginning of a conversation that we should all be having as a creative community. So I highly recommend you guys check that out. The link is in the comments for this video. And as I said, I will put it in the discussion for the video after it's over. I see Harmless Horror in the chat. He asked what happened. And the discussion, like I said, they go into deeper context of the video there, on their live stream. And you can get more of the story there. It's a sad story for all involved. But I think it's a conversation that we as a community, as creatives, need to start having with each other about these kind of things, because they continue to happen. There's going to be times when people are going to continue to have alleged bad behavior. There's going to be times when there's people who are very definitely having bad behavior. It's getting called out. It needs to be called out. There's going to be times when people are going to be internet bullied and harassed. All of the things that are involved in this story are not one-time things. They've happened in the past, going to happen in the future. And it's a conversation about what do we actually want out of these interactions with each other. So I really appreciate their discussion. That's why I wanted to forward everyone to that. So now let's have fun. All right. Okay. So I've mentioned in the past about getting a new camera, and I finally have one set up, and it is mounted above my desk. And the only weird thing about this is that my big dome head is in the way when I switch to it. So on my screen, my interface is being a little bit buggy today, so it's not showing me the camera within my streaming interface. So you guys let me know if you are able to see my desktop with this sketchbook. And hopefully that is all showing up. So the idea for this, I went to WonderCon. Let's see. Yes, thank you. James says he can see it, and I greatly appreciate that. So yes, the drawing board, the hands, and every once in a while, I'm gonna lean forward. You're gonna see my dome in the camera. So I had a great experience last weekend at WonderCon Anaheim, but one of the things that my good buddy Carl Altstetter brought up is that, I don't have any high-end art pieces that I'm bringing to the show. In fact, I realized I didn't bring any original art, and I thought I had some stored and ready to go. I did not. But he's saying that I would probably do a lot better at these shows if I brought some originals and maybe did some commissions. I don't like doing commissions at conventions simply because when I'm interacting, when I'm talking with people at the show, when I'm handing out postcards, the constant interruptions keep me from focusing on the drawing to the level of quality that I would like to focus on. So what I said is, well, maybe I need to just start doing some pieces at home and bring them to shows so people can purchase them there. Maybe even take some pre-show commission requests that people can pick up at conventions. And I don't do a lot of fan art, but I get weird ideas all the time. And one of the ideas I had, and I just drew it in my sketchbook, was the idea of a mashup of Joker and Wolverine. By the way, just to come back to the topic we were talking about earlier, Harmless Horror mentions, I have autism, ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, clinical depression, and IED. So I take mental health very seriously, and I encourage others to do the same. It's something we all need to focus on. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. I have a family member who suffers from schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And the number of people in my life that have suffered from clinical depression or just long-term depression that wasn't clinical is much higher than I'd care for it to be. And yeah, mental health is very, very seriously. Let's see here. Byron says, rub the milk dud for good luck. I'm not sure what that's a context to, but I will find some milk duds and I will rub them because I'm down with you. On the sketching, so I just had this weird idea, and I called him the Wolverine who laughs. And I just had this idea for a mashup with the Joker and Wolverine. And one of the things my buddy Carl recommended was just doing sketch cards, as opposed to doing a large, finished, elaborate piece. Just get some sketch cards, draw, like a handful. That way I've got some small pieces that I can sell, and just sort of get right into what he was saying is it's a quick way to get into the original art market. A low barrier of entry in terms of time involved to create it. Something I could sell at a low price point, build up an audience for, and then start doing larger and larger pieces. So I thought, all right, great time to test out my new camera. Put my sketchbook next to me. And honestly, the other reason why I don't necessarily do rub the milk dud, Byron says, I was talking about your dome. That's true. I'm right there at the corner of center stage. Oh. Yeah, that's gonna keep happening. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I could probably position the camera a little bit higher than it is, like in terms of farther up, but I have like my laptop like just off screen. I kind of want to keep it so it's not in there. And also I'm trying to set this up so that when I'm doing figure drawing and I have my board on here, this is all a work in progress. It's a new camera. It's a new setup for me and to figure out how I want it. But ideally I'm going to have a drawing board when I'm doing figure drawing sitting up here. And I want to be able to scoot back and push my drawing board up higher on the screen when I'm drawing on the low end of the board, and then back down, because the drawing board that I'm using is like a large, it's an 18 by 24 drawing board. So it's pretty big to be sitting on top of here. I don't know. Yeah, you're gonna have to deal with the milk dud. Well, let's see here. James said, I didn't tell you about the time I met Herb Trimpe. I believe he was finishing up a commission for someone when I met him, but I didn't know. So I sort of cut in front of them when they were approaching the table. Trimpe gave me a dirty look, but he was happy to sign my Hulk book. Yeah, you know what? That's it's one of those unfortunate things where sometimes when people are just sort of milling around tables, we don't really know if there's a line or a queue. You know, sometimes we think people are just kind of hanging around and chit-chatting, and the creator won't mind. But like you said, if he was cool about it and signed your Hulk book, then that's awesome. That's the nice thing, is that he handled it with grace. It was very cool. Oh, that was the other thing. So the nice thing about this new camera is that while I am sitting here, I don't have to mess with the settings above me. I can just zoom in. And I was going to zoom in a bit, because this is the thing. When I see other artists doing live streams and you get like those nice close-up shots of their process, I'm like, oh, that's so buttery, you know? And I was like, I want to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to start with you seeing the sketchbook out to the side and then be able to zoom in and show you the detailed work so you can actually see what it is that I'm doing. So I actually, oh, that was the other thing. I had started this thought and didn't finish it. My normal process, as you guys know, is very thumbnail heavy. And even if I were doing a commission for somebody at a convention, I would probably want to sit down and draw like, 3 or 4 thumbnails just to make sure I'm happy with the composition and that it looks like an image that I am happy with. And my biggest difficulty in doing commissions is it's a self-criticism. It's that perfectionism that I have to fight, where if I am going to charge somebody money for a piece, I want it to be the best that I'm capable of. And a lot of times, if I'm constantly being interrupted and I'm not able to really think about the composition or work out the details, in the end, all that matters is that the person who commissioned the work is pleased with the result. That is what matters. But I find it difficult to charge people money for work if I look at it and say, I can do better than that. It eats at me. And this is a conversation I've had with other creatives all the time. And they always tell me it's 2 things. One, you need to suck it up and just accept that not every piece is going to be a masterpiece. And 2, having to live with that is a great driver for improvement. Knowing that, each time you do a commission, that's like your work is set in stone and someone's going to have that in their collection and look at it. They're kind of like, it's a tough love thing of like, well, yeah, if you don't feel like that work is good enough, then get better. And I think that it's one of those where normally I'm not super tough love. I'm cozy Uncle Jeremy, want to like cuddle and nurture and say, you know what, keep trying to improve, be kind to yourself. But I think that a lot of the creative professionals I've talked to that say, suck it up and just get better, they're right about that. If I'm that concerned that a commission is not going to go down in history, if I'm that concerned that someone's not going to proudly, boldly show a commission, then I need to do better. So let's see here. So James asks, is this a character you came up with? Well, it's a mashup of Wolverine and Joker. So it's 2 characters that I did not come up with. I've never seen it anywhere, but I will tell you that having gone to enough comic conventions and having read enough comics, anything that I may come up with, I would be surprised if I was the only person who ever did a mashup of Joker and Wolverine. I would be very, very surprised, because they're two of the most popular characters in comics. So, and if I were to do this, it's not something that I own anyway. It's just a piece of fan art that I'm going to put online. If this idea of mashing up these two characters somehow became popular, it wouldn't matter whether it was my idea or not anyway, because anyone would be perfectly. If you wanted to go out and start doing sketches and commissions of this mashup, I don't own those two characters, so you'd be well within your rights. Go ahead, do it. And that's one of the things about fan art. It's never been that I've had this conversation multiple times with people, because sometimes it may come off as if I am anti-fan art or poo-poo fan art, and that is absolutely not the case. I've always said it's more that I have so many ideas of my own that I'm interested in that there usually isn't anything that I'm that big of a fan of that I would rather draw in place of my own characters. But in this standpoint, I kind of wanted to try doing a few, and this is the thing about doing these little sketch cards, is I think I'm going to do maybe a mix. I'm going to do maybe some Marvel characters, some DC characters, and then do some of my own characters. And I'll also tell you, I'm not going to do just this one. We'll see if I finish this during the stream, but I have multiple ideas and multiple iterations. And it is my nature to tend to want to just draw the, I'll take one idea and I'll do like maybe 5 different concepts or iterations of it. For instance, I didn't put the Wolverine, the Joker hair on this one, but I wanted to try in my sketchbook. I've got a version that has the Joker hair coming out from above. So it's just him just wearing the facial mask. And then I did one where he's got the actual top of the cowl covering his head, but it's green instead of yellow. I think that I'm going to add the Joker hair only because the hair really sells that it's the Joker. And with this, it's kind of like you get it, but in order to get the context, it's almost like you need to have a full, like do the whole rest of the costume in color. And I don't want to do the whole thing in color. But I also have different ideas for different poses. So I wanted to do one with him kind of leaning down and looking over menacingly and kind of like a Wolverine type pose, but it being the Joker. And then in my next page of my sketchbook, I have a sketch. One of the things that I was thinking about was having him with claws. And I liked the idea of him. Let's say that the Joker actually like somehow killed Wolverine, which I know, crazy, right? But let's say he killed Wolverine and he's wearing Wolverine's costume. I liked the idea of him holding Wolverine's arm with the claws out. So he's doing like a classic Wolverine pose, but he's holding Wolverine's arm so that the arm is still like next to his face with the claw out. But then I thought, well, maybe doing something where he's got like a gun, a Joker gun, but instead of having a bang thing coming out, it's got claws coming out of the gun, like a triple barrel gun. It's got the little snicked sign. Or one of him holding, instead of like the full arms, he's holding like the skeletons, like the metal skeleton of Wolverine's arms kind of crossed. So just going through variations of poses that Wolverine is famous for taking. And I thought, well, I don't know which one is the one I really like. Why don't I just draw all of them? And that is the beauty of doing small sketch cards. So let's see here. Harmless Horrors says, I'm thinking of doing art commissions sometime in the future, but I don't have any ideas on how to get started. Is there any advice you can give me? Actually, what I am doing right now is the advice I would give you. You know, just sit with your sketchbook, draw stuff that you think is cool and fun, and then just redraw it on a piece of artboard. I mean, it depends on what size you want to go. I personally I like 9x12s. I like what is it, 8.5 by 5.5, like the actual size of my graphic novel. I've got a couple of pads around the house. Well, hang on. I'm actually gonna grab a pad over here. All right, so I've got some Strathmore mixed media board. Zoom out a tiny bit. I love this remote, man. Anyway, so it's a pad of Strathmore mixed media board. So you can go on here with watercolor, you can go in here with acrylic, whatever colors you want to use, or you can do black and white. But it's, something that's not as intimidating as doing like an 11x17 large commission. But, a pad like this, just draw, do a finished piece, put it out, and, post them online. Now, you were talking about doing art commissions. When you're asking about ideas on how to get started, there's two things. There's ideas in terms of what to draw, in which case I say just find whatever you want to do, whatever type of commissions you'd want to do. If you want to do superhero commissions, do some superhero pieces. If you want to do horror art, do horror art. Then there's the question of how do you actually get clients for new commissions? And what you do is you post the pieces that you're really happy, that you're proud of, and then you just tag them with open for commissions. That's it. You just let people know that you're taking commissions. And eventually people will see that and say, hey, I want them to do that, but for my character, or I have a piece that I'd like. And, if you don't get commissions right away, that's fine. Keep doing more pieces and experiment. Try, for instance, because I have a lot of different tastes. I love superheroes, but I don't tend to, my comic books aren't superheroes. My comic book, I just finished a long Western series. So to be honest, it would be smart for me to do a bunch of Western images. I don't know if I'm going to do that because the next book I'm doing after that is not a Western. But the best way to go about it is to do a lot of work of the type that you would want to be commissioned to do. And as you get better at those pieces, people will say, oh, I want you to do that for me. So that's what I recommend in terms of getting started. James says, I don't know if you've seen Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, but there are a few scenes where one of the daughters and a family friend draw in a digital art program. It reminds me of when I fooled around with a digital arts program on a Mac that didn't display color. I have not seen that movie, but that sounds like an interesting discussion. An interesting recommendation. Where's a pen? I'll write that down. Have not seen it, but I will check it out. Thank you. Let's see here. James says it's an interesting idea with the claws. Thank you. I wasn't sure what was going to be the best way to go about describing, showing Wolverine with his claws. And at first I thought, let me start with just a basic portrait. And if, like the image that's in the sketchbook, I thought, well, maybe I will just have him having Wolverine claws. But I thought, if I'm going to do it as a Joker mashup, I want to Jokerify the experience of having the claws. And the easy answer is just have him holding knives because he's the Joker. He's known to cut people. But why would I do something easy when I can sit there and rack my brains doing weird stuff? So you guys have been on this ride with me enough times to know that I'm generally not going to take the easy route because I am weird and stubborn. So that's where we end up with this. And I will tell you that also, one of the reasons why I'm limiting my use of color to just a little bit is because this card that I'm using, these are actually printable playing cards with it has a matte finish, but it is slick like vellum. And I absolutely could not do watercolor or marker on this. It is way too actually, you know what? This might actually work well with something like Copics, but I don't have any Copics. That said, colored pencil seems to work well. Generally speaking, if I were going to be doing color with these, I would probably want to do watercolor. But I have a sort of a weird... Hang on, I have to switch back so I can see the camera because I'm not sure what you guys can or can't see. Oh, hang on. I have to mute the camera while I blow my nose. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. I stayed muted for a second. I saw Paul Pates in the chat. He says, just got out of the store, driving home, listening only. And he asks if I've watched the 3-Body Problem yet. I have not. It looks very, very good. I've heard some people say that it's not perfect. But I mean, hey, what show is? It's from the creators of Game of Thrones. I'm trying to think. What is it that my wife and I are watching right now? Oh, you know what? Insecure, the Issa Rae show. I had been trying to get my wife to watch the show for a while, and she just was never into it before. And now I'd walk in one day and she's like, "Oh, you know what I started watching? Insecure. It's really good." I'm like, "No shit." So I figure whenever she's on board with something that I want to watch, I try to roll with it. And to be fair, one of the shows that she's into, I don't catch every episode of, but she's introduced me to some stuff that I probably wouldn't have watched on my own. There's a medical drama. All this stuff is on Netflix. So that whole thing of just watching Netflix having like old shows that shows that have been canceled available to stream, or shows that have wrapped up, I think that's a great business model because we rarely watch stuff while it's new and coming out. We tend to watch stuff that's older and been out for a while. There's a medical drama called The Resident that used to be on Fox, and she started watching that, and I enjoy it. It's a good show. I don't catch every episode, but I know that was all. I'm sure the point was, let's have an interesting conversation about 3-Body Problem, and I haven't started it yet. If anything, who knows? I may actually start the book before I start watching the show, because the audiobook is available from my library, and a lot of times when I'm working or going for a walk, an audiobook will be my go-to. Now, in terms of the color, one of the things that I have tried is, a lot of people have heard of like a Zorn palette, or just sticking with a palette that's just a a red, a blue, a yellow, and then just black and white. And working in product design and graphic design, we work a lot with either Pantone colors or CMYK colors, because CMYK are the actual ink values that go through all printers. C for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K for black. So a lot of times, I've been experimenting with this, and I haven't done it that much, but the idea of coloring the Joker's hair, making it green simply by combining blue and yellow. It's like those things that we learn as a kid about how with red, yellow, and blue, how you can combine those to make orange, purple, and green. It's the same thing, except I'm trying to get colors that are closer to the actual cyan, yellow, magenta, so that it really is, I'm thinking in terms of the value ranges I would think if I were working in print, because I've done that for so much of my working career that it's not a difficult thing for me to wrap my brain around. And yeah, this isn't going to be the vivid green that will perfectly match what the Joker's hair color is, but it's not going to look like the bright lime green that he has. But still, it'll give the overall effect. Let's see here. So yeah, my intent is not to do this entire piece in full color. It is just going to be the hair and the Joker's lipstick, because those are the things that really signify that it is the Joker. The nice thing is I can go in here with the blue-green, and then on top of that, I mean, not blue-green, but go in here with the blue and the yellow. And after I put some blue in there, let me sharpen this a little bit. Hope that didn't blow anybody's eardrums out. My pencil sharpener is a little bit close to the microphone, so that might be a little unpleasant. And there's the milk dud. You just come in here and sort of try to blend a little bit more yellow into the blue. I'm trying to decide if I want to come in here with any more black and try to refine that. Well, black meaning graphite. Whether I want to refine that a little bit more, or just try to do all of this with just the colored pencil. I feel like it does need a little bit of shadow. Let's see here. James says, I have an electric sharpener, but I haven't been using it lately. Well, I mean, honestly, I really don't use my electric sharpener that much anymore. It depends on what I'm using. For instance, there's definitely times when I'm drawing, or I prefer doing rough sketches with, if I were doing this on a larger size of paper, I probably wouldn't be using a mechanical pencil. So I would be using, I don't know, maybe just a number 2 pencil and sharpening that with my pencil sharpener. But for something as small as a sketch card, I really feel like I need the control that this offers me. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the comic creator Kenneth Roquefort, but I had the pleasure of seeing one of his sketchbooks before. And the man, his sketchbooks, he has sketchbooks that are like the size of this sketch card, like tiny sketchbooks. And he will draw a splash page in these sketch cards that looks like a detailed double page spread. And you're like, how is he doing that? Like, it's the most amazing piece of tiny art I've ever seen. And yeah, the fact that they're small is probably what allows him to do that while staying as prolific and staying on schedule with his work, doing small pieces. But it's an astounding thing. If you're ever at a convention and Kenneth Roquefort is attending, seek him out and go to his table just to see if he'll let you see one of his sketchbooks at his table, because it's the most amazing thing you have ever seen. And he's a really nice dude. But yeah, normally I've been getting thicker and chunkier in terms of my my line work. If anything, I think I don't know if I've got like Alex Toth envy, but it feels like I'm aspiring towards doing things that are kind of like big, chunky, bold, broad things. This is actually a lot more detail than I would normally do. And also, this is something that my buddy Carl would probably say, my whole point was for you to do something that's simple and easy. Why are you doing, why are you trying to make this all extra? Well, I tried doing one in ink. What was it that I was drawing? Was it Psylocke? No, it was Batgirl. At the convention, at WonderCon, I tried drawing started working on a sketch card, and I had the problem that I always have, which is I really try to engage and talk with people at shows and be present, and that means I really can't focus on the drawing. But the Batgirl piece that I started doing, I was inking it with a brush pen. I have a little travel drawing kit. Let me put that there for a second. Got a little travel drawing kit. Wow, too close. Zoom out a little. I'm going to go through the batteries on this remote like nobody's business. So anyway. All it is, I've got 2 different brush pens. One is a water pen. In fact, it's also very, very dark here. Let me adjust the brightness. Oop, that doesn't seem to be helping. All right. Anyway. I tried inking with this is just a plain old water brush. like the kind that you use for watercolor and you fill with water, but I fill it with fountain pen ink. And it's very painterly, but I want to start doing larger pieces with this. Maybe an 8x6, maybe even larger, like a 9x12, because so much ink comes out that I really have to be able to do large sweeping strokes, or just have something, a piece on the side, a piece of paper that I can wipe it off on. And this is a Fude Japanese brush pen. And it is, I don't think it's meant to be refilled, but I can unscrew the barrel and I can pour fountain pen ink in this, and it continues to work. And this gives me a line that is very controlled, and it feels like what you would want a brush pen to be, but still just fillable. And then this is me actually using the brush pens the way they're intended. I just put water in this. Now, if I happen to have a travel watercolor set, and I would use it with this. But what I was actually thinking is, the fountain pen ink is not waterproof like acrylic, like India ink. So what I'll do is, if I want tones, maybe I'll just lay down a few lines, and then I use this to smudge it, and smear it around and actually use it like a tone. And then I've just got some pencil sharpeners for my red pencil, blue pencil, graphite number 2. This mechanical pencil goes in with this set, which is why I've, along with the eraser, I've also got some lead for a mechanical pencil. So it's like I try to keep all the stuff that I'm going to need for sketching in general in this little travel thing, plus an eraser. Plus I've also got 2 more erasers, a fine tip, and a slightly broader one. Or really, it's kind of like this is already a fine tip eraser. Let me put this over black. This is already a fine tip eraser. The smaller one is kind of like an extra fine, which, I've got these out because, hell, I'm doing a little sketch card. So really the extra fine is what I'm using. I don't know, just a little tool tour in terms of what I'm working with at the table. Thinking about Kenneth Roquefort's tiny sketches in his beautiful sketchbooks made me think of that. Let's see here. Back to the chat. So Byron says, small art like that is always mind-blowing for me. Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's not so different from drawing a panel in a comic book page. This is probably about how big. Believe it or not, I would probably maybe even draw a character's head even bigger if I were drawing a panel on a comic book page. Usually if I'm doing a close-up, then it's going to take up like a third of the page, maybe larger, depending on the context of it. So yeah, this is kind of even for me, this is a little bit of a small face. But maybe if I were doing something that's like a half page, or if I'm doing a splash page, but it's multiple figures, it might be something that size. Paul says, man, that's a great drawing of the Joker. Joker's one of my favorite villains when he's done well. There have been some really bad Jokers too. First off, thank you. I really appreciate that. I don't know. The crazy thing is, the longer I make art, the harder I find it to be critical of other people's art. I'm highly critical of my own art, but if I see, say, a rendition of the Joker, like some people didn't necessarily like the Rasta Joker with the dreads from the early aughts, the Batman cartoon. Some people didn't like Jared Leto's kind of more My Chemical Romance Joker. And I think for all of those iterations, and it's not like I've gone through and have a like an encyclopedic memory of every different character design of the Joker in comics. Like, for instance, I thought that during Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run, the iteration where the Joker had peeled his face off and then sewn it back on, so you could really see the scars and the muscle tissue underneath, that was an amazing character design. But if there's a rendition that some people think is not particularly successful. What's interesting to me is the idea of taking that and saying, well, how can I take this thing that maybe didn't work in a comic and still do it in an interesting way? Because it kind of in the same way that a painter can just make a landscape or a river or a potted plant look beautiful, I think the same is true with character designs. All right, I'm going to mute again for a second while I blow my nose again. Allergy season is up. Weather is changing. Pollen's in the air. Hang on. I've got a microphone I can mute. I've got an above head camera. It's like I'm a professional podcaster or something. It's crazy. All right. Yeah. So I actually, it's one of those things where, not every character design is gonna nail it. And some character designs are just like, that is too complicated to draw panel after panel for an entire issue, forget about an entire run. All those things are true. But I don't know. I come at it with the sense of, honestly, you could take anything, even an overcomplicated one, and say, hey, Bruce Timm, you're great at making really simple dynamic character designs. Redesign this. So I think that anyone can find a good artist can find a way to make any character design work if they're given the flexibility to modify it to their own style. In fact, that's an interesting challenge, Paul. I'd like to see you take a Joker design that you hate and say, if I were given the design brief to do whatever this Joker is, what would I do with it? I'd be interested to see what you do. In fact, I'm going to make a note here, Dreadlock Joker, because that's the one that I think of. That I don't know if that's what you're thinking of, but that's the. Actually, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'll do Dreadlock Joker and Emo Joker. I mean, that is the nice thing about doing the sketch cards. So if I just got all these little cards, I can just do as many variations or images as I want until I get stuff I'm really happy with. And also the fact that this was another good point of my buddy Carl, is that small pieces give you room to fail, because we as artists are very terrified of being judged by others, being told your art sucks, to be vulnerable with ideas that might not necessarily be popular. Small pieces are places for small failures. You can put a piece out, and if no one likes it, no one responds to it, or even if people respond negatively to it, you're like, well, I spent an afternoon on it, or I spent a couple hours on it. I mean, ideally, I could probably finish this in less than an hour, but, we're chit-chatting, and I'd rather have fun talking with you guys than just silently draw. But point being is that if I do this and people hate it, or any of these versions, it's like, all right, that was an hour. It's an hour of my life. Maybe I learned something from it. If anything, I got some practice. Anytime you're practicing drawing, that's not time wasted, even if you draw something that people hate. Let's see here. James says, I don't know if you can get carpal tunnel from doing small pieces. I thought I'd be willing to give it a shot. I wasn't aware of the artist you mentioned. I am trying to think. His name has a French spelling. Let me see if I can. Let me see here. No, he's Puerto Rican, actually. But for some reason, I thought Roquefort. I thought there was a Q in there, but there is not. Here, I'm going to post his name in the chat, and then I'll just show it so that everyone else can see. I never even thought about the fact of sharing stuff that way, by posting and then showing the post. But anyway, that's the author. I mean the artist, Kenneth Rocafort, Rocafort. So Kenneth Rocafort, amazing artist, really really nice guy. His artwork is super detailed. In fact, maybe do a search for Kenneth Rocafort sketchbook and see if you can see images of his sketchbooks online. But even when you see them and you see how detailed they are, you will think that the sketchbook that he's showing you is like a large sketchbook because of how detailed it is. And when you see that it's something that can fit like in the palm of one hand, it's like when you see it in real life, your brain can't process it because it looks like an artist did a drawing in a big sketchbook, and then it got hit by a shrink ray, and you're just looking at your brain is like, how is this so detailed? It's pretty amazing. Anyway, all right. And you know what? James made a good point about getting carpal tunnel by drawing very small. That is possible. And this is something you guys have probably heard me mention before, but I don't mention it often enough. There's two things that can cause a lot of hand problems in terms of drawing. One is how hard you press down on your paper surface. So if you are very heavy-handed and you're pressing down, that will give you hand problems eventually. And how tightly you grip the stylus. Like if you're squeezing it with a death grip, that's gonna definitely give your fingers not necessarily carpal tunnel, but it's gonna make your knuckles and your hand hurt eventually. So what I honestly try to do is I try to glide my pencil. Like I hold my pencil as though I'm almost like it could slip out of my fingers. I try to very delicately let it. Oops! See, there we go. Hang on, I gotta grab my eraser. I try to both grip it lightly, like I'm just using my fingers to keep it in position, and I'm trying to press lightly. And even when I'm drawing small, I'm probably using more of my wrist with this drawing than I normally would. But I try to keep sort of my wrist locked, and I'm mostly moving from my elbow and shoulder. You're going to see me doing a lot more wrist action with something this small than normal, and that's a very good point, James. But more when I'm drawing larger, the larger it is, the more I'm drawing with my shoulder. Let's see here. Oh yeah, James says sometimes having a lot of space to fill can be overwhelming or open the door to too many possibilities. Yeah, that's very true. I have found, interestingly enough, I learned this when I was in college because I was a drawing and painting major. It didn't matter how big I drew a piece. The bigger they got, the less detailed they got. But what I basically did was there's a certain amount of detail that I'll put into any given picture. And if I draw a really big piece, then it's very, very simple. If I draw a small piece, if I draw something the size of a sketchbook, it's very, very detailed. And that's just it. That for some reason my brain didn't I don't end up filling it where every inch of the canvas or the drawing board is filled with detail. It just gets simpler when I get bigger. I don't know why that is. You think I would take advantage of it. I'll take advantage of a large surface and being able to put a lot of detail into it. Maybe it's just because I get bored. But even with smaller pieces, what I'm trying to do with pieces of all size is focus the detail on what's important. I put the detail where I want the person's eyes to go. So really, it's faces. A different Carl, not my buddy Carl Altstetter, but the figure drawing instructor that I study with, Carl Ganas. He's often said that if you draw, he has a class specifically on drawing heads, hands, and feet. And he says, if you draw good heads, hands, and feet, people will forgive a lot of other things in the drawing. If the proportions are a little bit off or wonky or the anatomy's wonky, if the heads, hands, and feet look good, people will be like, oh, it's a good piece. So it's almost as if for everything else, I'd like to just make it flat color with just a little bit of value to give a sense of like three-dimensionality, and really only have those things, faces and hands and feet are shown, have those be make those detailed. But that's probably more of a painting thing. Like if I get back into the habit of painting more often, which I would love to do, and maybe we'll do in front of you guys. Let's see here. James says I should get a travel one. I guess in terms of the art kit, having a travel kit. And by the way, it's not like this was expensive. This was like, I don't know, maybe like $8. And I can't remember if I bought this online or whether I actually saw this at like a Michael's or an art store. But, you know, it's not particularly expensive. They do make ones that have slots in them for holding pencils. I was fine just getting this thing where I can just toss everything in there. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe this would work better if I had little bands, elastic bands to hold everything down. But I'm happy with it, mainly because it is slim and it is something that is the same size as my 8x6 sketchbook. So the fact that I can sit these two together, they're low profile, and I can just slide them into a bag, an art bag to carry and go. Super simple. That's what I like. I like easy to go, easy to carry. Let's see here. Byron says, moving up in the world. And James says, I don't think Peter Laird does much drawing these days. You know, what's weird is I have not done much of a check-in on what's going on with the Ninja Turtles creators lately. I mean, I know that they didn't draw The Last Ronin, but even that, it's available for my library to check out, and I just have not been able to make the time to check it out. But let's see, does this need to be brighter? Oh, that's too dark. There we go. All right, I guess that'll have to do for the brightness. I can adjust this, the brightness level, and make this even a little bit brighter. You let me know whether this is bright enough, because when I had the aperture set to let more light in, it was a little bit too blown out, and I was afraid you guys wouldn't be able to see enough. But you guys let me know if that's the right level of brightness. And we are at about an hour here. And like I said, I'm going to do different versions of this. I'm going to do this version where it's just his head. And then I'm going to do a couple of versions where you can see the claws. But just to give this a sense of completion, I'm going to go ahead and put his lipstick on. But, you know, I mean, in terms of the Peter Laird thing, I mean, hell, those guys gave us... It's not often you get some creators that create a lasting franchise series of characters. So it's like, hell, if he doesn't feel like drawing very much anymore, that's his business. I mean, personally, I feel like the whole point in making something successful or being creatively successful is so that you now can afford to just sit around drawing all day anyway. But you know what? You know, he's an older dude. He's probably got grandkids that he wants to spend time with. Wow. I can see the difference here. The magenta is kind of sitting on the surface. The colored pencil is sitting on the surface. In comparison, it's much richer in this sketchbook. This sketchbook is just a normal sketchbooky surface. It's got more tooth versus this smooth coated card. That's the reason why I wouldn't want to try doing any watercolor on it. I mean, hell, I don't even know how acrylic would take to this. I feel like that's just an interesting idea I had just now. Is I wonder what would happen if I ran some sandpaper over this card. Not this one, but another blank card to see if I can roughen the surface. I hadn't even thought about that. but this is coming out pinker, whereas in here, I don't know how well the color contrast is showing up on the camera, but to me, this magenta is coming out as a redder magenta versus what's on this one. This just feels like pink. And I can live with that. You know, it's not the be all end all. It's not ruining the piece, but I had expected the colors to be similar to what I had in the sketchbook. And to be honest, this Joker, the way I'm rendering him, it almost feels like a mix between like the Greg Capullo Joker and Cesar Romero, the Batman 66 Joker. I mean, I don't have him with a mustache that's covered with white makeup, but the shape of his mouth, I'm kind of channeling. I'm channeling Cesar Romero. And I will tell you, you know, it's kind of frustrating, that thing about how when you draw a rough sketch, you can never get it quite right. Like the mouth shape in this rough sketch is so like, there's something about how it comes down a little bit wider and then is rounded at the bottom. And that doesn't mean I can't round this. I can round it. I can make this rounder. But the mouth shape in the rough sketch is just subtly less square, and it's creepier because it's sillier. It is a sillier mouth, whereas I made this Joker a little bit too square-jawed. And that's something that I need to remember, because the thing about Joker is that his chin is pointy, but it's not square. Like in the sketch that I've got up here, it's a little bit pointier. Here it's square, and I intentionally rounded it in this drawing. And now I went back to that first one, and I need to remember in future drawings to have it kind of come to a rounding point. And I can round this a little bit more here. These are all things that and this is the reason why I end up drawing the same thing over and over and over again, is because I keep seeing little changes I can make, little iterations. So for the most part, this piece is done. The only other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to finish off rendering a little bit of tone on the on his pecs, because scrawny as he is, he's scrawny but ripped, you know. And I really feel like Zack Snyder, I feel like Jared Leto got the shaft in terms of his role, in terms of his casting as the Joker after Heath Ledger, because no matter who played that role after Heath Ledger, it was a thankless job. You know, it's like walking into a wood chipper. And I actually think that I liked his Joker. It was a weird Joker, and it was not the classical Joker, but I thought he was a very, very good Joker. And I felt like he was a good sport, knowing that he was walking into something that people were going to be very judgmental about. And I don't feel like he got a fair shake. I thought it was a really good performance. I thought it was intentionally trying to just not repeat what had already been done before. And I feel bad they didn't have a chance to do more shots at it. And in fact, when the first Suicide Squad came out, and they had a little bit of Harley and Joker in that, I feel like the parts, obviously Harley Quinn, they've continued to use her, use Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I mean, until the new Joker movie that's coming out, but the best parts of the first Suicide Squad movie really were the scenes that had Joker and Harley together. So, you know, when they had the Zack Snyder director's cut, and I saw that, it just reminded me of the fact that I was like, you know, I don't think the filmmakers did Jared Leto dirty, but I feel like the fans did Jared Leto dirty. Like, it was a good performance. And no one's going, if someone just came in and tried to do a Heath Ledger impression of his version of the Joker, no one would like that. Everyone would just say, you're just doing an impression. They'd be mad. There's no way to win with that. And it's sad that, you know, that Heath Ledger passed away. But something has to come afterwards. Otherwise, we're just going to like not have the Joker anymore. You're not going to retire him as a character. And I feel like he should have been given. I mean, I can see people have a right to not like what they don't like, but I don't feel like the level of hate of his version of the Joker was warranted, because it was just, to me, a different take. And I like seeing different takes. I mean, obviously, I'm drawing the Joker as Wolverine. I like weird shit. I like weird mashups and weird takes. It was a weird take, but I thought it was a good take. All right. So I'm going to wrap things up here on the live stream. And I'm going to try and get this card available to sell on my website. And, you know, start building a body of sketch cards. And once I figure out what's selling with the sketch cards, I will move to larger pieces and start selling those. This back over here. And how do you guys feel about this new camera setup? Let me know in the comments. Do you feel like this is an improvement over the previous times when I was doing figure drawing? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it kind of like, it was not that bad before, and it doesn't really make a difference to you one way or the other? I'm just curious, because I'm always trying to figure out ways to improve the experience for you guys, and, you know, keeping it fun for me. So let me know what you guys think. You know what? I think I'm just going to finish this and sign it. I think this is the wrap here. What year is this? I've learned to start signing my name backwards from the bottom up, because otherwise I start up here and I never figure out, you know, whether I'm going to run out of space or not. So there we go. The Wolverine who laughs. Let's see here. Couple of last comments. And James says, "Oh yeah, that's looking good. Thank you. I appreciate it." And Byron says, "I do think it's probably an improvement." Good. You know, as long as I'm moving things in the right direction. I was curious whether it was like, you know, if you guys were like, "Oh my God, this is awesome. It's so much better," or whether it's just like, "No, it's good direction." So what I would really love is to be able to get it in like HD. The problem is that for HD or streaming, this camera can hook up to an HDMI cable, and I can hook HDMI up to my laptop. The problem is that I would have to do pre-recorded videos instead of live streaming. I don't think that it works with live stream. The higher I can upload a video that has HD or 4K, but I can't stream in 4K. So let's see here. All right. There we go. Now I'm really done. All right. And again, for anybody that missed my my earlier, you know, the opening for the live stream, I am going to again post that link to episode 411 of the Artcasters. I'm going to post that one more time in the chat for the stream. And it is the beginning of a conversation that I think we as a comic community want to have about what kind of outcomes we want when we're dealing with social and behavioral and conduct issues in a creative community. So definitely please check that out. All right. There we go. First stream with the new camera setup. I think it went well. Always open to feedback and criticism. So if there's things that did not go well, things you think I could have done better, I'm always ready to hear it. Let's say not always. Maybe James, I'm just like, leave me alone. But not today. If you enjoyed this live stream and would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can go to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. The live streams that we do for Patreon are 2.5, 3 hour long sessions. It's something we call Art Book Study Group. So we break out books that we're trying to learn more about and improve our craft from. We've been doing a long running series where we're working through Walt Reed's The Figure page by page, and it's one of the best books I've seen on figure drawing fundamentals. So we're working through that. When we finish that, I'll probably post a poll to see what people want to do next. Believe it or not, I'm thinking about leaning into something from landscape, only because landscapes and environments are a weak point for me, and the whole point of doing these studies is to lean into weak points. Or we may just actually finish up George Bridgman's Guide to Figure Drawing because we started it and hadn't finished it. Anyway, you join the Patreon, you get these links to the live stream, and you also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord server where there's a voice channel. So when we're doing the live streams, you can actually get on, as opposed to talking in the chat, you just get on. We can just have a conversation like normal human beings and talk shop while we're working. You guys can post stuff in our Patreon Discord server for me to look at during those Patreon live streams, bring them up. We can have a conversation. I can do drawovers and more. There's higher rewards for higher tiers, but $2 a month gets you in the door. Links in the description for this video, and if you're watching on Twitch, links in the About Me tab. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated gifts delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, You can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you're digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter. Thumbnails, character designs, script excerpts, page layouts, and more. Basically show you how I put the entire book together. So, and if you want to see what's inside these books before picking them up, go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, scroll down to book flip-throughs, and you can see I made flip-through videos of all 3 of these books. You can look inside before picking them up. And on that note, I always forget to say this too late. I should say it in the middle of the stream while people are still on here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new and you haven't seen these videos before and you want more of them. Hit the notification bell if you want notifications when I go live. Spread the word if there's friends that you think would enjoy this kind of conversation and live streams. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. That's it for now. Go be creative.